But now we can move on to one of the more fun sections, which is the good trope versus bad trope.
Yes.
Part 2. I'm excited, because now we get to either gush or complain about things.
More. And also...
That's what we do
tropes.
On this podcast.
I know.
Also, tropes are fun to talk about.
Yeah.
As always, there can be a trope that you hate that you'd see done well.
Yeah.
My first example of this is love triangles. I hate love triangles.
But you love the Crazy Ex-Girlfriend song about love triangles?
I do. Oh my god. Yes. It's so good. This is not real. I'm sorry. But no, I hate love triangles. Yeah. I don't enjoy them. I feel like it's one of those things where it's like I didn't like them for so long, and then I found out polyamory existed, and I was like, that just makes me hate love triangles more.
Yeah.
Because it's like, in my opinion, it would always be more interesting for all three people to end up in some sort of poly relationship than for one of them to get left brokenhearted.
Right.
If they are all good people involved, obviously. But this is like one of the things where I have an exception to this, which is Book of Life. Ooh. Which has a love triangle in it, spoilers, with the three main characters. But the reason I really like that one is because the one character who, oh god, why can't I remember anyone's name? So Maria and Manolo are the main couple who are in love with each other, but Maria's dad doesn't want her to marry Manolo because he's like he loves music, he wants to be a musician, and like he doesn't want to be a bullfighter like the rest of his family, and it's like, so he brought like shame to them because of that, and so it's like his struggle with identity, but so she's also, their other friend is in love with Maria, but and she agrees to marry him in order to protect the town. Because he said he would stay in town, and he's like a big like hero, and he said he would stay in town if she married him, but he realizes that that's not what she wants, and he realizes, like, they're like at the wedding, and she says that she'll marry him, and then it's his turn to say it, and like you can see it on his face that he's like, this isn't gonna make her happy, and that's not gonna make me happy. And then the ending comes back, and it's beautiful, and Maria and Manolo get together, and, like, they're still all friends in the end, and it's, like, that's the one love triangle that I'm actually good with, because, he doesn't leave brokenhearted. He realizes that the best thing he can do to show her that he loves her is let her be with someone else.
Yeah.
So, like, no one loses. It's like everybody wins. Also, the creator later on was asked how he felt about people shipping all three of them, and he said that he actually really liked it. So, in theory, in the sequel, we might get a poly relationship with those three, which I think would be super cute! But yeah, I hate love triangles.
That's something, like, that I was kind of impressed with, at the end of Corpse Bride.
Oh, yeah.
It was kind of like the same thing.
Right, it's like
Victor agrees to marry Emily, and Emily understands that she's been selfish and is able to move past, like, things that have been keeping her tied on.
Right. It's like, it's definitely one of the, if you love them, let them go.
Yeah.
But I feel like that gets a lot of, like, flack for, like, oh, if you love this person, you'll let them do whatever they want. It's like, no, you'll enable to them, you won't hold them back from doing what is going to make them happiest.
Right. The one downside, where I do think Book of Life handled it a lot better, was because I still feel to this day like Victor had more chemistry with Emily.
Yeah.
So it's like, it was a good message, but it fell really flat to see him end up with Victoria.
I think one of the problems is Victoria falls into a trope.
Yeah.
Which is, unfortunately, how it goes, is because she falls into the meek heroine trope, where she's just... Victoria doesn't have a personality.
No.
She's nice. Which, I mean, is, like, more than I can say for, like, the rest of the family.
Yeah.
But, I mean, like, that's not a substitute for, like, a full personality. And Emily had so much personality.
Yeah.
And, like, they were both, like, weird and quirky, whereas Victoria was just pretty normal.
Yeah.
And it's, like... Yeah, so it fell flat, but I mean, like, it's still a good message.
It's still a good message. It's still a great way to resolve a love triangle if you're going to have one.
Right. Or just smush everyone together in a poly relationship.
That's the best way to resolve a love triangle.
I love polyamorous relationships, and they're never represented ever, and I really wish they were more because...
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones! Like, you never, like... It's always, like, portrayed as, like, oh, you have to choose between this person and this person. It's like, actually, you can have, like, a healthy, multiple-person relationship. Yeah. And, like, everyone can be happy, and I didn't know about that for the longest time. So, when I had my little love triangle going on in my actual life, my real life, it was distressing. And then I was like, wait, there's a compromise. And then things happened, and, yeah. We're not going to talk about how that ended, because, that's not a happy ending. But whatever. Anyway.
And that is something, because the one thing about... Because media does have such an impact, I feel like if there were more examples of healthy polyamorous relationships in the media, people would be more open-minded to it.
Right.
Because there are situations in real life where you'll be in a love triangle... And you do have to choose because either one or two of the parties has that biased against polyamorous relationships.
Right.
Because it does you have to have a certain level of maturity to be in one.
It's very much not something you can sort of leap blindly into. You need a lot of communication. Mm-hmm. You need a lot of trust in your partners. And you need, to be, adults about things. You need to be, mature about them. I know that's harder for, younger kids. Mm-hmm. So, maybe if you're in high school, it's not going to work out as well. But, everyone's maturity level ranges.
Right.
But I guess that also can lead us on to our next trope, which is the big misunderstanding.
Yeah.
I hate it. Amazingly.
If one character says to your other character, we're on a break, what does that mean?
Oh my god.
Will you spend your next, your next 6 seasons shouting, we were on a break?
God. Don't do that.
Worst part of what was a great sitcom.
Yeah, Big Misunderstanding is just one of the stupidest plot tropes, I think, because, if you had talked to each other for, 5 minutes, you could have, figured things out.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, wait, that's not how it was. It was a misunderstanding. But instead, they don't talk to each other, and then everything's bad, and then they have to figure it out, 200 pages later, and it's oh, well, we could have been, instead of, being mad at each other, we could have been building up that we're in a good relationship because we talked and communicated about anything in our lives.
But we can't have that.
We can't.
We absolutely
can't.
We
can't have that. Why is that a thing?
Romeo and Juliet.
Oh my god. Romeo and Juliet is such a fucking example of the big misunderstanding.
I think that's what made it popular. Shakespeare's wouldn't it be hilarious if these two characters are idiots and everyone's this is the greatest fucking love story?
And he's wait a fuck. Hold on. You're all gone. Wait, come back. That wasn't the point.
That I love seriously about Shakespeare as a person because he did not take his work at nearly as seriously as everyone today does.
It's so funny because half of the jokes are just dick jokes.
It's just dick jokes.
Shakespeare's just dick jokes. And everyone's this man's work is so prevalent and huge. And yeah, he did some good shit, but did you see that dick joke over there? That dick joke goes on for 5 minutes. Dudes. Oh my god. But yeah, misunderstandings are one of the stupidest plot devices for a main plot point.
Right.
Obviously, misunderstandings happen, and, but if you're in, a real serious and healthy relationship, you're gonna be talking to each other, and you're gonna bring it up with your partner and being hey, I heard this, what does that mean? It's it's so easy. It takes 5 minutes.
And it's One thing that I do think is kind of interesting in the big misunderstanding thing is when it comes from, I think there's like very little to no excuse for it when it's like normal chemical balanced people in a relationship.
Right.
But I do think there is something to be said for like the communication blocks that a person can have with their partner if they experience like anxiety.
That's
especially. True. Because it adds, not only does it like explain stuff that is going on with real people, but it brings like an extra layer to the
right
thing, which is not to say that you can I don't want this to be misconstrued as if your character has anxiety you can get away with dumb tropes, like that's not, it's not necessarily like something that I would suggest, but it is something that has worked.
It's one of those things where you can use that as like to show how your character deals with things if they do have really bad anxiety. Like IRL, have really bad anxiety that I have to take pretty strong medication for. And like, so it's one of those things where my partner is well aware that I have anxiety. And so when something comes up that we do have a misunderstanding about, like they know to avoid certain ways of phrasing things to keep from, like, setting off fire alarms. Because, like, one of the things that always sets me off is when someone's like, we need to talk, and say nothing else. I get so scared, and I start dissociating.
Right.
Because it's my only defense mechanism, and it's like, so that is a thing you can, like, if you're showing, like, characters building a relationship, and one of them does have really bad anxiety, and, like, gets nervous when they have to have a talk, like, you can use that and use it to develop the relationship and be like, hey, this is what we need to talk about. Okay, next time when you need to bring up something big like this, could you maybe do it in a way that doesn't make me have a panic attack? Such as this. And it's like, right, like, if your character is not neurotypical, like, there's substantial reasoning for things to happen, but, like, us non-neurotypical people have ways that we deal with it that are just different. But yeah, so, again, it's one of those things that there's no reason it can't work, but more often than not, it's just a lame way to cause drama.
And the one other thing I'm going to end on for the big misunderstandings on my part is that if you do have a big misunderstanding between characters that causes a lot of pain, it's important that when it's resolved, everyone understands the entire situation. Because that's like, and that was a big thing with like Ross and Rachel. Like, Ross he went on the defensive, he never explained what he thought was happening, and so like even when they got back together the time after that, nothing had been resolved, and all of those feelings of hurt were still there because neither of them understood where the problem was.
Right, it just, there was a problem, and then they got back together, but the problem was still there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really important if there's misunderstanding, resolve the understanding.
Yeah.
Make it understood, even. So then the next trope is, I'm sure, something we're both very fond of, which is the evil other woman trope. Because who doesn't love some fresh new age sexism? Who doesn't love that? I don't. I don't like it.
No one doesn't like it at all.
It's like one of those things where this is unfortunately often paired up with a meek heroine, which is the evil other woman is like an ex or like somebody who has like an unrequited crush on the hero or vice versa, gender-wise, whatever. I just assume everything's gender neutral when I say it. Person A is being crushed on by person C, who is either an ex or just an unrequited love, while person A is going with person B, and then person C is trying to force their way in as, like, to take person A away.
Right.
Which is shitty, because
Yeah.
usually in the evil other woman, as the name would imply, is usually a very assertive, strong, independent female
Right.
that is trying to uproot the meek, supportive, sort of bland female lead.
And that's another like really interesting thing about Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, because it is very much that dynamic, but it's told from the point of view of that third person.
Right.
And she's actually the meeker of the two women.
Right.
Which there's a song about it in
A what?
a musical show.
No way.
Where Rebecca kind of realizes that this is the trope that her life has become, and she's the bad person, and it's like the villain in my own story, and it's just like, it's a really interesting, because it's all about that trope.
Right.
And
it's like one of those things where it's like, again, it can be done well.
Yeah.
Such as in Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. But I think that's a lot because we get to know the other woman.
Yeah.
You know?
They're all...
Which is her. It's our main character, is the other woman.
Yeah.
Which is why, like, you don't hate her.
Yeah.
Because she's our main character. But
it is, like, a really slippery slope that... It's a line I think Crazy Ex-Girlfriend walks very well, but it's dangerous to pull that kind of thing because you don't want it to seem like you're justifying ruining someone's relationship.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So much of the time, it's portrayed as very black and white.
Yeah.
In, like, most stories when the evil other woman's not the protagonist. Like, she's just the antagonist. And it's like, what... I mean, like, sure, that kind of shit does happen. Like, people do try to ruin other people's relationships, but I mean, like, generally, like, it's not a very good relationship. Like,
generally don't. It also, like, just starting a relationship, best case scenario, if you're, like, if that kind of thing happens, it's like that... Even if you can get someone to leave their partner for you, it puts such a tremendous strain on the beginning of your relationship with that person.
Right, there's so much baggage there.
It's like, that's not a good way to start something.
Right, and I mean, like, it comes off as, like, you're the kind of the rebound from that relationship.
Yeah.
And, like, even if it's the opposite, or the person is in a really toxic relationship and you're trying to bring them out of it, a lot of the times, you're not going to be able to win them over with just romance, because that's generally not how toxic and abusive relationships work.
Right.
Like, there's usually a lot more going on there than they don't love you like I love you. It's like they're manipulating you.
They don't love you like I
love you.
Maps?
Yes. But yeah, it's usually, there's so much more to it than that, and it's just like, oh my god. It's, like, instead of building, like, an interesting character study off of it, it's just used as another excuse for lame drama and pitting women against each other.
Which isn't good.
I don't like it when women are pitted against each other. I think it's...
That's another thing, like, it does happen in real life, but would it happen as much if that's not, like, if that weren't how women's relationships with one another were portrayed in the media? Right.
I mean, like, this is one of the things I really struggled with growing up as someone who was defab. Like, growing up, I had such a tough relationship with who I was, because in the media, like, it was always the stereotypical girls versus the other girls. And it's like, there was never an in-between. Right. There was never, you can be this, but also have elements of this in there. And because of that, my identity was so skewed growing up.
Yeah.
Like, it was a mess. Like, I wasn't really comfortable with anything about myself until I got into high school. Like, until I was, like, my sophomore, junior year in high school. Like, I really felt comfortable with anything, and that's a big part of the media. It's because it's always women versus women, and it's like, huh.
And it's like, it's really scary when you find yourself in real life falling into these tropes that you wanted to avoid, you
Right.
know? Because it's like, especially growing up, most of my friends were guys, and it's like I fell into that thing, and then it sort of, in a weird way, it justified the idea that girls are supposed to fight each other,
Right.
because those are always tropes that go hand in hand, and it's like, if my friends are guys, this makes sense.
Right, because
Which it doesn't. It's dumb.
It's garbage, and there should be more solidarity.
Yeah.
Because you don't need to fight each other just because you're the same gender.
Right.
It's okay. But yeah, so I feel like the evil other woman trope is mostly a vehicle for sexism and to push misogyny, both in men and in women, to fight against choose your lady trope here.
Yes.
Usually being the strong, independent, smart woman. So, let's move on to a trope that I actually like.
Nice.
For once in my life. I like something.
You like something?
Yeah. It's the Adventure Zone. So, the next trope on the list is friends to lovers, or, alternatively, enemies to lovers.
Yes.
These are tropes I actually like, as it turns out. Because I'm a real big fan of friends to lovers. That might be because that's the trope my relationship falls in, I guess. Because, as it turns out, Ben is... Yes, please. Ben is also one of my best friends. And we started off as best friends, and then we got together. So, like... I guess I'm a little bit biased towards it. Probably a little bit.
On the other side of that, I think that's probably the exact same reason why I am a big fan of the enemies to lovers trope.
Oh, because that's your relationship?
Because, 2 years before I started, really getting to know my boyfriend, it was my goal in life to kill him.
Oh god, it's so true. Would you like to elaborate on that?
No,
maybe?
I just wanted to kill him. No.
Okay.
We met in freshman year? Freshman year?
Yeah, freshman year. Yeah,
sophomore year.
No, it was freshman because I had my freshman history class with Aaron.
Okay.
And that's where I met him. And then that's when
that's
we started.
Right. Okay. We were in a Dungeons and Dragons group together, and Alan's like, we don't have a lot of people who actually play Dungeons and Dragons in this group. I told everyone I was going to invite you. I know you like tabletop games, and I'm like, that all sounds good. I'll do it on the condition that I get to play the rogue. And Alan ran it by the DM, and that was the thing. Well, we got there, and our DM had given the first choice of class to this big jerk. Got to play a rogue, and I was like, I don't know your name, but I'm gonna fucking murder you. And then he ended up betraying our party in the final encounter. We're fighting this Frost King. He's like, I'm gonna give you the staff and get the fuck out of here so I can live. And I was like, you fucker. And I was so determined. I hated this guy so much. It's like, who do you think you are? And then we ended up in a D&D group together 2 years after that, and we've been together for almost 5 years now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's been going strong ever since.
But it was even when we started that second round of game things, I'm going to destroy him in each of these games until he feels bad for messing up my chance to play a rogue.
I still don't think he feels bad.
He does not. He does not remember.
Oh my god.
That, he remembers vaguely that we were in a D&D campaign together, in high school, but he does not remember me claiming the rogue, does not remember stealing it from me, does not remember betraying the party.
Oh my god, Aaron, you... Hey, you, Aaron, I know you're listening. Fuck you, dude. Fuck you.
He remembers the giant elephants and, like, the halfling with the tower shield.
That's me. And, I was the halfling with the tower shield. But, yeah, it's funny how real-life relationships do fall into these tropes.
Yeah.
I like how mine's friends and yours is enemies.
Yeah.
But no, I really...
That personifies us well.
That's true. But no, I think it's one of those things, because, like, friends to lovers is a very realistic thing. Because one of the rules, like, you should always be writing relationship-wise is a good romance starts with a good friendship. Mm-hmm. And it's, like... So that's why when I see, like, stuff where it's, like, friends who are, like, close and then becoming closer and, like, realizing feelings and developing feelings and, like, struggling with that, and it's like, you know, I don't want to ruin our relationship, but I really like you. One of my favorite things is someone being really nervous and having their, like, confession, and then the other person's like, I thought it was obvious the way I felt about you. I realize now that it wasn't, you big fucking nerd. Which is great. I love that. And then also, so that's a lot of my relationships that I write fall into that trope, because I just think it's honestly a good one. But also, I have a certain pair that's the enemies to lovers, because they start off as rivals. They start off as rival gang leaders. It's Czar and Siren, as it turns out. Figured. You know, they're so good. But it's like they start off as rivals, and, like, they're just slowly, like, they're forced to spend more time together as they're trying to figure out the vigilante problem in their city, who is harassing both of them. And so slowly, like, they just start seeing each other as people rather than just rivals, and, like, they end up getting together, and I'm like, yes! This is what I needed in my life!
So good.
But yeah, I think it's fun because you really get to explore who the people are outside of a relationship. Yeah. Like, you really get to develop your characters. Which, I'm a little bit biased on. I like characters a lot, as it turns out.
That makes sense.
That's the kind of person I am. But yeah,
nice.
So that's one of my favorite tropes, as it turns out.
That's a good trope.
So then you added some tropes on here also.
I did, indeed. So I, like, want to talk about some cinematic tropes real fast, because I don't like them in most cases. There's the running to the airport, there's confessing your feelings for someone at their wedding, and there's the on-again, off-again thing. These are bad.
Yeah.
Like, more often than not, these are just, like, terrible things to add to a story. I do really like, one of my favorite television scenes is from 30 Rock. Liz Lemon runs to the airport to tell a platonic friend that she isn't mad at him anymore for lying to her, and it's like they had like a romantic relationship in the past, but like they were kind of trying to get over it and whatever, and they had this big fight, and he's going home, and she like runs to get him, and she's like at the airport, she's got like this really, like, her favorite kind of sandwich and the dipping sauce, and she can't take it through airport security, and the woman's like, you gotta choose, lady, it's the sandwich or the guy, and Liz Lemon's like, you can see her thinking about it, and the woman at the airport's like, well, this is less cliche, and she's like, I can have it all, and she, like, scarfs that sandwich down, and the woman, like, watching at security, like, has no idea what's going on.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
And then, like, when she finally does catch up with him at the airport, her explanation is, like, I wolfed my Teamster sub for you. And he's like, is that a thing? Like, do people say this?
Oh my god.
But it's like, that's another instance where being aware of the trope and intelligent writing really can make stuff work. Because the 30 Rock...
Right.
writers just, like, knew what was up.
The 30 Rock writers are very good at inverting tropes.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of the times the running to the airport is just like, are you serious right now? You know how much money they had to spend on that plane ticket, dude? You could have worked this out before.
And Ross has to spend twice as much because he also has to buy Phoebe a ticket.
Oh my god. Well, he deserved
to
it.
the wrong airport.
He deserved that.
He did.
Ross deserves everything that has ever come his way. But yeah, a lot of the time it's like the running to the airport also falls in line with the big misunderstanding a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Or specifically, it goes with one person being really shitty and then like stopping the other person's plan to be like, wait, give me another chance.
Yeah.
Maybe I won't be this shitty. Even though I just ran here and made you waste like $300 on your plane ticket, you should come back to my place.
And then there's like the opposite question mark of that, where you break up with someone at an airport, like Arizona did.
Hey, fuck Arizona.
I don't know if that's a trope, because I don't think most characters are like selfish or terrible enough to do that to someone.
Well,
when their luggage is already on the plane to Africa, but you know.
God.
Whatever.
Fuck her. God, I hate her so much.
So bad. So yeah, but those are some tropes, and like Alan said, they do go along with other things. I feel like the confessions at weddings also goes along with the misunderstanding thing. And again, it's like the evil other woman thing, where it's like, if you confess your feelings to someone at their wedding and they leave their current partner at the altar, that is too much pressure for a new relationship.
Right.
Which was something that they covered also in Grey's Anatomy, because some big idiot, like, he's there at his friend's wedding with a date, and then he stands up and is like, I think I'm in love with you. And she's like, let's run off together. And they do that, and then they get outside, and they're like, well, that was dumb. Like, because we can't just start dating now. Like, I left my fiancé for you. Like, we gotta
do something.
Do something. And then they elope, and then, like, their relationship obviously is terrible.
Right.
Because that's too much pressure. Which also falls into kind of, like, an early engagement.
Mm-hmm.
Or getting pressured into an engagement
trope. Not like a arranged marriage, but sort of like a forced marriage.
Right. Like a circumstantial rush on a marriage.
Right. I'm trying to think, what's the end of that? The Graduate, that's the one that ends.
Yeah.
With the two run off together, and like they get on the bus and they're like sitting there and they're like happy for a second, and then it lingers, and then they're not happy anymore, and that's the end of the movie, and it's like, oh shit. Shit, dude. Maybe we fucked up.
There's also, the spoiler alert, also, it's like the same thing with Let the Right One In.
Yeah.
Kind of did that, where it's just like, what now?
Yeah, it's like, what do we... The thing about the confessions at weddings is it's such a, like, oh, and they get to elope and be happy. This isn't like a Princess Bride situation where she never wanted to marry the guy in the first place.
Yeah.
And, like, Wesley was physically tortured out of her life.
Yeah.
But, like... And so when he comes to save her, it's, like, the guy coming... Or, like, Robin Hood. Or, like, any of the, like, things where the woman or man, even though it's usually the woman, is, like, this is the person I want to be with. This is a person that's been good to me. This is a person I've been in a relationship with that hasn't really done anything bad. Like, they've made me happy. But, you know, you ruined my $10,000 wedding with this bullshit. I don't even get to have a wedding reception now. But sure, I'll go with you. It's like, hold on. Wait a second. Can we just hold on, stop that.
And, there's also confessing your feelings after. I want to talk about Love Actually.
Oh no!
My parents made me watch it at Christmas because they hate me, and no, it was like a family thing. We all got together to watch a Christmas movie, but then that Christmas movie was Love Actually, and it's like, I regret my decisions. But it's like, woman finds out that her husband's best friend has a crush on her after the wedding, and he shows up with like cue cards to confess his love.
That's so weird.
With music and he's pretending to be carolers and her husband's like in the other room and doesn't know what's happening, and it's like I see so many like memes and satirical takes on this scene, and it's like, those I understand, but who thought this was a good idea for this movie?
Right, who thought this was like a genuinely like good thing?
This is
Because it's bad.
super creepy.
Like, that'd be, like, if that happened to me, I would be like, you have to leave my wedding.
And then also there's like a, he's, one of the cue cards is just a picture of a dead body, and it's like, I love you for who you are, so even when your looks fade and you look like this, and then there's like a corpse, and it's like, no, could you not do that?
That's horrifying. Like, I understand, like, trying to make it, like, haha, funny, but also, they just got married. What the fuck are you doing, dude?
And, that's, like, a good, before we finish up on tropes, that's a good, segment into the Doppler-Dahmer theory, which is something that I'm really excited to talk about, because it is a reference to one of my favorite sitcoms and helpful writing advice.
Ooh.
The Doppler-Dahmer theory is presented by Barney Stinson from How I Met Your Mother, and he's one of those people you can learn a lot listening to him, but also don't listen to him most of the time.
Oh, yeah.
But the Doppler-Dahmer theory is something that actually really helped me understand the dynamics of the romance genre, because it says that like a big romantic gesture is either the best or worst thing you can do depending on whether or not the other person reciprocates those feelings.
Right.
Because when you look at all these big romantic gestures, they can be really creepy. But if you feel for someone, you're going to see it as romantic. Right. So it's like, and one of the things they do in the episode is they just kind of, like, they take everyone's meet cutes and they show them twice in clips, where it's like, the first one, it's like a big romantic gesture, and then in the second one, like, the lighting's dark and sinister, and it plays out like a horror movie.
Oh, God.
And it's like, it was just a really interesting take on that whole thing.
That sounds cool. I like that. It's very true.
It
like,
helped me so much, because I was like, I saw the episode, it came out like right around the same time I was starting to ghostwrite, and I was having a really difficult time finding what a romantic gesture was, because it's like, is this creepy, is this not creepy, and it's like, the Doppler-Dahmer theory answers that question.
Right. It's like, it depends. Everything is relative.
Yeah.
As it turns out. You know what that means?
Part 3?
It's time to move on to part 3, which is where I will circle back around to part 1, because I remember the other character in Book of Life's name.
Nice.
Finally!
Good.
It's Joaquin!
This is so good, because now it's going to be across 2 different episodes.
I know!
Circle back around to that.
That's so exciting. I love callbacks.
It's good.
Cool. So part 3 is how to write a realistic and enjoyable romance. So, like I said earlier, one of the most important things to do when writing a good romance is to start with a good friendship. Because there's this weird idea that you shouldn't be friends with your significant other. Like, your friends and your significant other should be separate. I don't believe that at all. I believe that you should be friends, if not best friends, with your significant other. Because you're gonna be, like, living together and, like, doing shit together, like, you should like each other? Question mark?
Maybe.
That's, like, I don't know how it is with you, because you're trying to kill your
I don't know if
wife.
I'd say that I like Aaron.
I would say, like, it's not like you moved across the country for him or anything.
Whatever.
Whatever. It's not, nothing like that. But yes, you should, cat dog.
He's gonna. I'm sorry.
Hey, Aaron, fuck you.
When you eventually get around to listening to this, I'm sorry for that. I don't know that I like you, but I'm sorry I told all these strangers.
Oh no, you're digging. Your hole just keeps going deeper, my dude. So yeah, like, start with a good friendship and, like, make sure your characters are, like, characters and not, like, even if you're not telling it equally from both perspectives, make sure that you're writing your love interest as a character and not as an object to be desired.
Yeah.
Because that's when your love interest gets, like, really flat and bland and boring and, like, nobody cares.
Yeah. Dynamic characters is the key. It's, like, the universal key to good fiction writing. So.
Because, like, as it turns out, it's kind of important to, like, have dynamic characters.
Yeah.
As just, like, a wild, crazy thing.
And it's something that, like, we were talking about how it's not usually a black and white situation.
Mm-hmm.
And dynamic characters really help that along. It's one of the main reasons why I do love Game of Thrones as much as I do, and why I talk about it all the time, is because there is not a single character in the series who is all good or all bad.
Right.
Like, there are a few who get really close to being...
Are we talking about Ramsay as all bad?
Yeah, we're talking...
Is it...
I actually can't think of a single redeemable thing about Ramsay.
If you're not Ramsay...
Oh. Yeah, if you're not Ramsay. Like, in the books, he was not as bad. But yeah, in the show, Ramsay was as close as you can get to having a character that is all bad.
Because, whoo, buddy!
And Daenerys is pretty close to being, like, all good.
Though, it's really showed, I think, in these last few seasons, or this last season specifically, the moral ambiguity.
Yeah.
Of Daenerys.
Which, yeah. She's not as close to being all good as Ramsay is to being all evil, but I would say that she is closer to that side of the spectrum than any of the other characters.
I'd say Jon Snow is pretty close.
And
I guess. Maybe not.
Maybe. With Jon Snow, it's one of those... I think the thing that works about both Daenerys and Jon Snow is that they're both constantly being put into situations where there is no correct answer.
That's right.
I feel like Daenerys is better at coming up with third options than Jon Snow is, which is why I would put her closer to that side of the... You know, because there's that whole thing. And also, the other thing that I really... They're both really stubborn, but I feel like Daenerys knows a little bit better when to yield.
Yeah.
Because, like, that stubborn... and this was actually something that I was thinking about the other day while I was watching The Good Place.
The Good Place?
It's, like, the Kant theory of having, like, your principles are only principles if you adhere to them all the time. You can't pick and choose when you follow your moral code. Whereas, like, situational morality, more relativism, is, like, much more dependent on you have to take everything into context to see what the best option is. And I think Jon Snow is too focused. He's too much like Ned Stark, where he's like, this is the right thing and I'm going to do it even if it hurts more people.
Right.
Because I have to follow my code of honor. And it's like, even though it sounds like a really noble thing, it does end up being
it hurts
worse
more
for people in the long run.
Right.
But that's a really interesting thing, is that, like, even if you are trying to create, like, a perfect character, there are situations that are beyond their control, and there is not always a correct solution.
It's one of the things that I find really helpful for writing characters, is it's the 3 pros, 2 cons rule. If they're a protagonist,
Right.
you give them 3 real good traits and 2 real bad traits. And it's like, because that keeps them from, like, you know, being boring, and it gives them variety, because they're not always going to make the good decision or the right decision or the most logical decision, because maybe that's counteracted by one of their bad traits.
Right.
And it's like, if you're writing romance, that's something that you need to see if your characters are going to be able to click, given their faults and their virtues, I guess. That's one of the notes I have written down here, is the pros of being together have to outweigh the cons of being together.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's a good measure of how healthy your relationship is like, the more positives are, the more healthy it is. The more cons there are, the less healthy it is.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, it's more of a percentage thing more than what exactly it is. But of course, this only goes for, like, non-abusive relationships.
Right.
I mean, that is a totally different can of worms
Yeah.
that does not fall into your regular, is this a good romance, or do they just not make each other happy? That's like, that's a different thing that we will talk about on a different episode at some point, probably.
Probably, yeah.
We talk a lot about a lot of things. But yeah, so, like, your characters have to make each other more happy than they do miserable, which is just not something you see, like, in most sitcoms, for example, or, like, most, like, straight media is always like, oh man, the wife's the old ball and chain, huh? Marriage really ruins a relationship. It's like, what are you talking about? Why would you get married if you don't love each other? What is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Why are straight men like this?
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Straight men and Arizona Robins.
And Arizona Robins, get out of here. You're all gone.
So yeah, it's if you have good characters, it's easier to write a good romance, and if your characters click, then you're pretty good to go.
One of the things I also have written down is this is a writing tip I found on Tumblr from the user Iron Ink Pen, and I reblogged this a while ago. But they say they use something called the kiss rule, which is if they have to kiss to show that they're in love, you're not writing the romance well.
And that is, crap, we didn't put this in the spoiler warning, but I'm going to talk about it anyway.
Now.
Spoiler warning for Pacific Rim. That was my biggest problem with the movie, is that you knew they were in love, they hadn't talked about it, they didn't have to say it, and then they kissed anyway. And it's like, I almost entirely wish that they hadn't done that, because they didn't need to.
They didn't need to.
I mean, and it was not the time. Also, because she had just resuscitated him.
Right.
That's not a sexy time for someone who has, like, just started breathing again, as it turns out.
Right. I mean, also, didn't she just... That's at the end, right? That's, like, the very end where she's also just lost her father.
Right. Like, it's not a good time.
It's a bad time.
And you knew they were in love. Like, they had that rule down. You didn't have to do that. You didn't have to do that. I think it's, like, one of the things that, like, Tangled does really well. Mm-hmm. Tangled is one of my favorite Disney movies. And it's, like, I feel like... Because Rapunzel and Eugene don't, like, kiss until the end, like, the very end. Which is so good. I remember when I was younger, I used to be really cynical about romance. And it was, like, I remember I was watching Tangled, and it's, like, they got their happy ending, and it was, like, at the time, I was, like, a bitter, like, teenager, and I was, I wish they didn't, and then it's, like, I've gone back and watched it, and I'm like, oh, fuck that. Happy endings are good! There's nothing wrong with a happy ending, especially when the characters have earned it so much. Yeah.
But that's the thing, is, like, you saw Rapunzel and Eugene, like, get there, like, how they were, like, really confused about each other at the beginning, but suddenly, like, they're complimenting each other, and they're, like, having these wild adventures, and they're making each other laugh, and they're having a good time, and then finally, at the end, you have seen the relationship build up enough that you want to see them kiss.
Right.
You know? But it's, like, whereas I feel like you got to, like, it was different than, like, in Pacific Rim, where the love was more of an undertone thing.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they kissed, and it was like, hold on, step back.
Pacific Rim is so close to being, like, the perfect science fiction movie.
And then it did that, and it was like, oh, Pacific Rim.
So close.
That's why I'm really excited for Uprising, because I think it's going to be maybe better than the original.
We can hope so.
I hope so. I'm excited for Uprising in any case. But yeah, so it's like, there are, like, different ways to show that people love each other. That's not just kissing. Like, you can do so many other things. It's like, you can show them making dinner for each other, or you can see them sitting on the couch and, like, sharing something, or there's, like, a million other things that couples do that are not kissing.
Yeah.
Not to say that kissing is bad. I highly advocate kissing. on all occasions.
On all occasions.
I'm a very physically affectionate person, so I highly advocate for it if that's your thing. But like, also there are other options because as it turns out, when you're watching characters, you don't just want to see them kissing and making out all the time because
Right.
that's boring.
You want to see them writing each other elaborate letters in Morse code.
Hey, you talking about horns over there?
I may be talking about.
Hey, eyes up. But yeah, so it's like there's that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
or there's sharing like stories from their childhood, or like one of them teaching each other how to do things. There are so many options, and it's like I think they should fully be explored.
Yeah.
Because so much more often than not, people would rather see people making each other smile and laugh than just kissing.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's what more romance is about how you make the other person feel.
And there's also something to be said for the comfort of, like, not having to do things that are traditionally romantic,
Mhm.
you know? Like, if you're with someone who has different interests than you, it's almost, like, I feel like you almost want to strive to be at a point where you can do different things at the same time.
And still feel
comfortable, like, you're, you know?
Right.
I think that's good.
I think is a very healthy thing because maybe your partner is not as into like physical affection or doing the same things. There's something to be said about a comfortable level of silence.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the most important parts you can reach
Right.
for a relationship.
It's good. It's a good point. And it's a good thing to establish, like, when your characters get to that point in a relationship, because if you have a couple that has been together since before the start of a story, it's good to know where they're at and be able to portray them in a way where they seem comfortable with each other, because even if the relationship is new to the audience, it won't necessarily be new to the characters.
Right. It's one of those things like me and Ben have Tony and Patty.
Mm-hmm.
And when we introduce them in the story, the thing is they're both very bullheaded and very strong about their opinions
Mm-hmm.
on things. And one of the things they do is they argue a lot. But it's never serious. It's more of a like, my idea of this is radically different than your idea of this. We're going to have like a fun tiff about it because it gets them riled up in a way that makes them excited, not angry.
Right.
So, but it's one of those things that they've been in this relationship so long and they know that works for them. So it's like one of those things where it's like, even though it seems like they're arguing all the time and making each other mad, it's actually just sort of their way of playing.
Right.
You know? So it's like, it's important to distinguish that from a couple that's actually arguing and like pissing each other off.
Exactly.
Because that's not good.
Not a good time.
It's not. So yeah, do you have any other writing advices for romance?
I do think it's okay to... I think when you're writing anything to an extent, it's going to be somewhat like you just writing, creating, you take your life experiences and you put that into your work. And I think that's something that's really important to keep in mind when writing romance.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you know, obviously, if you have a good variety of characters, there are going to be ones who don't see eye to eye with you on everything, but it's important to understand as best as you can their point of view in things.
Right. And it's also...
And that's just like another character tip, but
right.
It applies.
It's also one of those things that it's like, even if you've never experienced romance or don't experience romantic attraction,
Mm-hmm.
like, you can still write romance. There's
Right.
no reason you can't. Like, it's just one of those things where it's like, you'll probably have to, like, do a little bit more digging on it.
Yeah.
If you're not drawing on your own experiences, like, you can talk to, like, other people to, like, get their relationships with it. It's like anything when you're writing for a thing that you're not directly familiar with,
Mm-hmm.
you know? But there's no reason that you can't write it if you don't experience it or have not experienced it yet.
And you can draw on other... And it's important to know how to draw experiences from your own life that aren't exactly the thing that you're writing about. You know, like if you have never been in love with another person, you can still write about things that do bring you that kind of joy. Like you can take those feelings and transfer them.
Right. It's like if we, for some reason, had never been in a relationship, I mean, like, you're my best friend, and we do lots of things that make me happy, so, like, I could translate that into, like, through a different filter.
Right.
To make it a different kind of relationship.
Exactly. And, also, for as much as we have complained about the media, like, anything that you watch or play or read, you can analyze and be like, what works, what doesn't work.
Right. What works, what doesn't work, why does it work or doesn't work.
Yeah. And that's a good way to learn, also.
Right. And it's like, you know, Netflix is huge and has a huge romance section. Some good, some bad.
You can watch The Decoy Bride.
You can watch a million things. You can watch Full Metal Alchemist because it's back on Netflix.
Oh, it is back on Netflix.
Yes! You can listen to The Adventure Zone because it's on iTunes. You can watch Horns somewhere.
Maybe.
They took it off Netflix, I think.
Yeah, they bounce back and forth about having horns or not.
But yeah, so there's so many things, like, because our culture is so steeped in romance, you're going to be a little hard-pressed to find something that doesn't involve it, which, I mean, like, annoys me, because I'm like, I don't care for romance all the time. I'm much more interested in other types of relationships, unless the romance is done really well, in which case, give me that shit. Like, I want to see that.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be left with bland characters doing bland romance, because I've seen it a billion times before. You know?
That's like another really pro Game of Thrones thing, is that it very seldom is romantically driven.
Oh, God. Like, there's a lot of sex, though.
There's a lot of sex, but it's, there aren't a lot of motivations that are, like, dependent on...
Oh, yeah.
Except for Jaime. I'd say Jaime's, like, the big exception to
Jaime
that.
deserves better.
Jaime does. He deserves a lot better.
Even, like, he's been real shitty, but he's gotten better... And he deserves better.
He does.
At this point.
Nope. Never mind. I take it back. I forgot I'm mad at Jaime again.
Oh, right. Because of the dragons. That's right.
Jaime has been just, like, such a roller coaster of a character. Because you hate him, and then he, like, slowly works his way up, and now I'm mad again.
Now you're mad because of dragons.
Yeah. Cersei should be with him forever.
Oh, no! I would wish that fate upon my worst enemy. I said maybe that girl from middle school.
Set her up with Cersei Lannister.
Oh, set her up with... Listen, you know who's perfect for each other? Cersei Lannister in Arizona.
Oh, hey.
Couple from hell.
That's my new OTP.
Oh, God. Well, it's better than the last one.
Cross-genre. Quasi-Frollo.
Stop. Okay. We have to end the podcast now because you said it out loud. Okay.
That's the name of the podcast.
No. You said it in the last 3 minutes of the second half.
Oh, I actually do. I know what I want to title the podcast episodes.
Ooh.
If you're interested.
I am. But we should probably talk about that after we end the podcast.
Probably.
So it's a surprise.
Yeah. It's going to be good, though. Also, that people would see the title before they heard that point. Recording is weird, guys.
Recording's good. It's a fun time. But yeah, I think that's most of the points I wanted to cover. Do you have anything?
I do, read a lot. Like, read as much as you possibly can. Because it's good. It's just, like, it's a good way to learn.
It is.
Anything.
And, you know, one of the things I'm highly going to advocate for is don't just look at straight white romance. Because there's so much more. Like, love is so different across culture, across gender. It's being in a queer relationship is so much different than being in a straight relationship. And you can find essays and, like, all sorts of things. Like, you don't have to just go to fiction writing. You can go to autobiographies. Mm-hmm. You can go to essays. You can check out, like, a billion things. Like, you don't just have to draw upon what other writers have done. You can draw upon real life, as
Yeah.
we've said before. So yeah, just check it out. If you're in love with somebody, go be in love with them.
Communicate.
If romance isn't your jive, go play a video game or something. Do
And
something else.
Don't feel like you have to write romance.
Oh, yeah.
That's our topic of the day, but it's not something that has to be included.
Right. Sometimes the best relationships are the ones that aren't romantic.
Right.
Sometimes it's just cool to have good friends and good times.
Like, Trey and Abed. My bro TP.
Nice. But yeah, so romance is cool, but it's not everyone's cup of tea. Don't ever force it.
Right.
Because then
That's worse than not having it.
it's going to make you miserable writing it, and it's going to make the people reading it miserable.
Yeah.
Because you probably didn't put the heart into it that you want to see out of a relationship. So it's like, if the characters don't click, don't force them together. Just let it happen.
Yeah.
I think that's the most important thing about any romance, is you just gotta let it happen naturally.
Exactly.
Because force is no good.
No.
Alright, well, I think that is...
I think that wraps it up.
That's about the podcast for romance, which was a lot longer than we thought it would be.
We're sorry about that.
We talk a lot and we have a lot of opinions, as it turns out.
And I'm a little bit loopy today. I should have started with that probably.
Probably.
I was up all night writing romance.
What? I can't believe this.
And, by romance I mean horror erotica.
I was
going to
say, I read that story. Because you told me it was
romance.
due. That you had to do editing last night.
Yeah.
I was at work this morning, so I didn't feel any love in my heart for anything. But yeah, so that's the podcast. This has been the romance edition of Unsolicited Advice. Once again, I'm Bubblegum.
I'm Toxic.
If you have any comments on romance, on your favorite romances, your tropes, you can leave them down in the comments below. You can send us a message at
What's the best love story of all time? Let us know.
Cat will kill you if you
It's
don't
horns.
say horns. So beware of your answer.
I just want to see hundreds and hundreds of comments from followers we don't have writing in horns.
I was gonna say, wait, where are these hundreds of people coming
They're
from?
me.
Oh, it's just Cat. It's just Cat using multiple spam-a-cat counts. Spam-a-cats? I like that.
Good.
But yeah, so that about wraps it up. If you have any opinions, you can always shoot us an email at toxicbubblegumzine@gmail.com. And if you have anything to say it in the comments down below, because we don't have anything to do besides respond to comments and upload this video.
That's
so,
true.
Except I gotta go paint 6 stone studies, so hate that. That's romance.
Bye.
Bye!